Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me tell you how a round of applause, a missing shoe, and a champagne spill unraveled everything I thought I knew. Part 1, her heel was still warm. The first sign was the heel. Not hers, exactly. Just one of them. A black stiletto with a red sole, resting alone beneath a velvet bench outside the wine room. I hadn't even realized I was looking for her until I found that shoe, then everything else snapped into place. The second sign was the laugh. High-pitched. Familiar. Muffled behind closed French doors. I'd heard it 1,000 times, but never like that. Never with that breathy, flirtatious edge she used to reserve for me in the beginning, back when I mattered. The third sign. The silence when I opened the door. The music didn't stop, the chatter in the hall didn't fade, but in that tiny private lounge, where dim lighting fell like secrets across the couch, time paused. And there she was. On his lap. The man everyone at this party orbited. Her boss. The one whose name was carved into the ice sculpture by the champagne fountain. The one she claimed was a bit of a harmless narcissist. She wasn't sitting beside him. She wasn't whispering over paperwork. She was lounging on him, her bare foot tucked behind his leg, her fingers tracing the curve of his collar, his hand resting on the back of her thigh. They both looked at me, but only she smiled. "You're early," she said. Not sorry. Not startled. Just annoyed. What happened next didn't feel like a choice. It felt like watching a glass fall in slow motion and realizing it's already broken before it hits the floor. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. But something inside me, the quiet, patient part, it left the room. And then I made him beg. But I'll get to that. He didn't move. Even after I walked all the way into the room and closed the door behind me, he didn't budge. His legs remained stretched out, comfortable, like I was just another guy at the party who had walked into the wrong room. Like I was late to something that had already begun without me. Daria, still curled across his lap like it was her throne, raised one eyebrow and tilted her head as if I had something to explain. The audacity didn't hit me all at once. It settled like smoke in my lungs. Every second they just sat there, every second neither of them made an effort to stand or apologize or even look uncomfortable, that smoke got thicker. He was the first to speak. "You look like you could use a drink," he said. His voice was casual. Mocking casual. The kind of tone someone uses when they know they have the upper hand and want you to feel it. Daria didn't even glance at me. She stared at her manicured nails like she was waiting for me to take the hint and walk away. Like I was ruining the vibe. I felt stupid. Small. Like the party had been a stage, and I had just wandered behind the curtain to find out the play was about me. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. "So this is what it is now." She looked at me then. Cold. Bored. "Don't make a scene, Wes. You always do this. Just leave. Just leave." As if I'd walked in on a boring meeting and needed to be excused. I didn't move. Something inside me refused. My legs locked in place, but not from panic. Not even from pain. It was something colder. Something new. I looked around the room. Crystal glasses. Imported art. A charcuterie board that probably cost more than our fridge. And there they were, two people who had erased me and hadn't even bothered to clean up the outline. "I think you should go," her boss said again, this time with a smile. A condescending, polished smile that men like him probably learn in business school. The kind of smile that says you're harmless. And that's when I did something I hadn't planned. I turned around, not to leave, but to lock the door. His face twitched slightly. Daria sat up straighter. "Wes," she said, her voice a warning now. "Don't be weird. You're embarrassing yourself." "No," I said softly, and I almost didn't recognize my own voice. It was calm. Clear. I'm just getting started. There's something electric about watching a man realize he's not in control anymore. His posture shifted. His smile cracked just enough to show the fear behind it. He stood up slowly, placing Daria gently to the side like a wine glass he didn't want to break. I stood between him and the door, saying nothing. Just watching. He tried humor. Look, let's not do anything dramatic. But it was too late for that. The drama had already happened. They had written it, directed it, starred in it, and assumed I'd never be bold enough to steal the spotlight back. I took a step forward. Just one. No yelling. No threats. Just a step. And he backed up. Into a chair. And sat down. Not because I told him to. But because suddenly, he didn't know what I was capable of. He didn't know where to look. I could tell the exact moment his confidence cracked, not shattered, no, just cracked. It was in the way his jaw tensed while pretending to remain relaxed. In the way his hand, resting lazily on the armrest, started tapping a silent rhythm against the leather. His fingers betrayed him. Even though his words hadn't changed, his body had already started apologizing. And I hadn't even raised my voice. Daria? She stood off to the side now, barefoot, arms crossed over her chest like a scolded teenager. Except she wasn't embarrassed. Not by what I'd walked in on. No, she was irritated that I had the nerve to disrupt whatever power play she'd been enjoying. As if I were the one being disrespectful. He spoke again. Finally. Wesley, right? Not Wes. Not hey man. Not even look, I'm sorry. Wesley. Like I was a client he was trying to de-escalate. You're clearly upset, and I get it, he said, spreading his hands like some motivational speaker. Let's all take a breath here. Nobody wants this to get uncomfortable. I smiled. And I think that's when he truly started to worry. Because that smile wasn't me. It wasn't the guy who pays property taxes early, who apologizes to telemarketers, who once cried because someone gave him the wrong sandwich but he was too shy to say anything. It was the smile of a man who had been erased one too many times. You already made it uncomfortable, I said. I'm just here to see how far you'll go before you start lying to yourself. He stood up slowly. Daria shifted uneasily. I don't think she'd ever seen me like this. Not angry. Not dangerous. Just still. Focused. It terrified them because I wasn't doing what they expected, no yelling, no accusations, no pathetic begging to explain what this meant. That silence. That's what made him weak. He reached for his phone. A stupid move. Maybe it was instinct, call security, call someone who could step in and break the moment. But I beat him to it. Not physically. No, I just said one thing. I wonder what the board would say if they saw the security footage from this room. He froze. Daria blinked. Now it was my turn to walk. I didn't rush. I didn't slam the door. I simply walked out, past the wine room, past the caterers, past the artificial waterfall gurgling by the garden. My heart was thudding, but I didn't stop. And then I heard it. Behind me. Rapid footsteps. A voice, not hers. Wait. It was him. Not Daria. Him. He grabbed my arm. Not forcefully. Desperately. Like a man trying to catch a lifeline that had already been cut. Don't tell anyone, he said. Please. We can talk about this. I'll make it right. The same man who minutes ago had acted like a king in his private lounge now stood behind me, breath shallow, eyes darting. Make it right? I asked without turning. You didn't even think it was wrong until I saw it. And that's when I realized something. He wasn't afraid of losing her. He was afraid of losing his reputation. And I was going to use that. But not tonight. Tonight, I walked out through the front gates alone. And left both of them standing in the ruins of what they thought they controlled. The worst part wasn't catching her on his lap. It wasn't the fake smiles, the slow exit, or even the part where he begged me not to ruin him. No. The worst part came the next day, when I remembered something I had chosen to forget. 3 months earlier, I got a message from someone named Naomi on LinkedIn. It was short. Blunt. Hey, I used to work for Langford. Tell your wife to be careful. At the time, I read it twice, blinked, and ignored it. Told myself it was spam. Probably someone bitter over getting fired. I even laughed about it, showed it to Daria while we were folding laundry. Her face didn't twitch. She just smirked. People are jealous of success. It happens. And I bought it. Hook, line, and idiot. The memory of that smirk burned now, like a bruise I didn't realize she'd left. So the morning after the party, while she was still asleep upstairs, or pretending to be, I went digging. I opened that message. Replied. You were right. What did you mean? Naomi didn't take long. 20 minutes later, I had a wall of text, screenshots, and a screenshot of another screenshot showing a blurry photo from 2 years ago, Daria, standing at another Langford party, in a similar pose. Different woman. Same story. This is what he does, Naomi wrote. He grooms them. Builds them up. Makes them feel invincible, then trades them for a newer version. Your wife isn't the first. She won't be the last. The question is, how long are you going to let him use her like this? I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if I could respond. But I saved it all. And then I stared at the stairs. She still hadn't come down. It was nearly noon. No text. No noise. Just silence. Thick, loaded silence, like the air was holding its breath waiting for someone to finally say it out loud. This marriage is dead. But I didn't say it. I did something worse. I made her breakfast. That's right. I made her stupid eggs, poured orange juice into the glass she likes, toasted a bagel, everything exactly how she liked it when she used to look at me like I mattered. I carried it upstairs. She was in bed, eyes open, phone in hand. I wondered if she was texting him or if she was just staring blankly at nothing like I had done all morning. When she saw the tray, her expression didn't change. Trying to guilt me, she asked. I set the tray down. Trying to remind you that I was your husband before he was your entertainment. Her lip curled. Not a smile. Not guilt. Just coldness. You don't get to act wounded, Wes. You've been emotionally absent for years. I was tired of being invisible. I nodded slowly. So you made me disappear completely? Silence. She didn't answer. She just picked up the glass and sipped the orange juice, like we were discussing weekend plans instead of betrayal. I stood there for another 10 seconds, maybe less, and something inside me flipped. Not snapped. Not broke. Just flipped. The part of me that had clung to hope, it turned its back and walked out of the room before my body ever did. Downstairs, I texted Naomi one more time. Thank you. I'm going to fix this. My way. And that was the beginning of the end. Not of the marriage. Of the performance. Because if Daria wanted a game, I was done playing the part of the fool. The next few days were strange. Not quiet. Not explosive. Just, calculated. Like we were two spies pretending to be civilians at a dinner party, trying not to let anyone see the wires running under our skin. Daria kept moving through the house like nothing had happened. She took long showers. Answered emails on speakerphone. Played podcasts in the background about female leadership in corporate spaces, like she wasn't the same person who had curled up like a spoiled cat on her boss's lap 2 nights earlier. She never brought up the party. Neither did I. But that wasn't silence. That was strategy. Every morning, I made her coffee. Every night, she fell asleep before I came upstairs. Or pretended to. She left dishes in the sink. I cleaned them. She hummed in the kitchen. I listened. It was like watching someone slowly walk across thin ice, pretending they couldn't hear the cracks. And the cracks were getting louder. I started collecting. Not in the obsessive, jealous husband way. I wasn't scrolling through her phone or hiding in closets. I didn't need to. She'd gotten too comfortable, too sloppy. I found screenshots she hadn't deleted, half flirty, half corporate messages from Langford. I saw calendar invites at weird hours. I even found a private email she'd sent him from a burner Gmail, using a name that was almost hers but not quite. That was the one that did it. That was when I stopped feeling sad and started feeling focused. I built a folder on my laptop. Named it something innocent. I backed it up to a flash drive. Then to another. Then to the cloud. Then I waited. Daria didn't know I was scheduled to meet with someone. That someone was Naomi. We met at a coffee shop on the other side of town, the kind with no Wi-Fi and mismatched mugs. She looked nothing like I expected. Not angry. Not wounded. Just, clear-eyed. Like someone who had already been through the storm and had nothing left to lose. I handed her a copy of everything I had. Not because I wanted revenge. Because she already had it planned. Naomi had filed a formal complaint against Langford months ago. But it was dismissed. Quietly. Without noise. HR had buried it. But with another woman, Daria, and real-time evidence. It was a match. I wasn't trying to burn my wife's career. I just wanted the truth to have a witness. And Naomi? She didn't just witness it, she amplified it. Gave it weight. Direction. Teeth. That night, Daria came home late. Hair messy. Lipstick faded. Her voice slightly hoarse from meetings. I didn't say a word. I just handed her a glass of wine and asked how her day went. She looked startled for a second, then slipped back into performance mode. It was good, she said, tossing her bag onto the chair. Productive. Exhausting. You know how it is. I nodded. Still working with Langford closely? There was the briefest pause. Tiny. Microseconds. Then the smile. Of course, she said. Strictly professional though. You know that, right? I raised my glass to her. Clinked it gently. Of course. She drank. And I let her lie. Because I already knew how this would end. I just needed her to think she still had control. It started with a missed call. One I wasn't supposed to see. Daria had left her phone on the counter, something she rarely did, and stepped into the shower. The screen lit up while I was making tea. No name, just a number. Area code I didn't recognize. But I knew. I knew the second I saw the length of the call history underneath. 36 minutes, 49 minutes, 1 hour and 4 minutes, almost daily. And then one labeled, voicemail, 123. I don't know what made me do it. I wasn't a snooper. I wasn't a spy. I was the guy who used to tell her I trusted her too much. But that morning, I put the mug down, stared at the glowing screen, and pressed play. It was his voice. Langford. Last night was, you know what, let's not talk about it over the phone. Just wear that red thing you had last time. I'll handle the flight back. He won't notice anything. He never does. I didn't hear the rest. Not because it cut off, because I blacked out for a few seconds. Not fainting. Not collapsing. Just, everything narrowing to a tunnel. A sound in my ears like wind pushing against glass. When I blinked, I realized my hands were clenched so tight my knuckles had gone pale. I walked out of the kitchen. Not fast. Not furious. Just, slowly. Mechanically. I went outside and sat on the porch. And I tasted blood. I had bitten the inside of my cheek so hard I hadn't noticed until the metallic taste filled my mouth. I spit onto the lawn. It looked like something from a crime scene. And still, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, swaying slightly, like a man on a boat he didn't remember boarding. When she came downstairs 10 minutes later, fresh makeup, perfect curls, linen blouse still warm from the steamer, she kissed me on the forehead. Like she hadn't just shattered the final piece of me. Got a meeting at the office, she said, already slipping on her heels. I nodded. Have a good day. She didn't notice anything. She never did. That's when I knew something for certain, she wasn't going to stop. Not on her own. Not because of shame or guilt or any of the things I used to believe people felt when they hurt someone who loved them. She wasn't lying to protect me. She was lying because she didn't care if I knew anymore. And maybe, she never had. That evening, I went to the basement. Dug out the shoebox I hadn't touched in years. It was filled with old receipts, spare keys, a letter from my father I never mailed back, and one envelope I'd sealed the year we got married, my "in case things ever fall apart" letter. It was full of names. Passwords. Accounts. Now I added something new to it, a printed transcript of the voicemail, and a list of every date and time she'd visited his office outside regular hours. I wasn't building a case. I was building an exit. But it wouldn't look like an exit. Not yet. Daria still thought she had the upper hand. She didn't realize she'd already lost something far more valuable than my love. She lost my silence. I didn't vanish. Not yet. That would have been too easy. She expected that. That's what men like me do when they're broken: pack a bag, sleep at a friend's, cry in a hotel lobby, text one too many "we need to talk" messages. But I didn't do that. Instead, I got smarter. You see, love makes you clumsy. But pain makes you precise. The next morning, I walked into our shared office and calmly asked if I could use her old laptop, the silver one she stopped using after the last system update. She didn't blink. Go for it, she said. It's wiped clean anyway. It wasn't. And she forgot that I'm a developer, that I know how to recover data most people think is long gone. Within an hour, I found old video clips buried deep in the drive, not scandalous, not sexual, worse. They were recordings from her work conferences. Clips of her giving rehearsed presentations, and then later, off-stage footage, casual phone captures of her and Langford sharing drinks, leaning in too close, whispering, laughing behind closed doors. The timestamps matched dates when she told me she was exhausted from 12-hour workshops. She didn't know those videos still existed. But I did. I watched each one like a detective reviewing footage from a case everyone else had given up on. Each glance, each hand on a shoulder, each prolonged moment of silence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a fling. It wasn't even about him. It was about me never being part of her story anymore. That same afternoon, I scheduled a meeting with a lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, not yet. A corporate attorney who specialized in workplace misconduct and whistleblower protection. I told him I had digital evidence of a CEO engaging in inappropriate personal relationships with a subordinate, who happened to be my wife. He leaned back in his chair. Smirked. Let me guess. Langford Group. I didn't even have to answer. Turns out Naomi wasn't the only former employee with complaints. The problem was no one had connected the dots. The board always had just enough plausible deniability. Until now. Because I had the one thing no one else had, a window into their private world. Her access. His words. Their carelessness. I wasn't going to leak anything. Not yet. I didn't want to blow it all up with drama. I wanted to disconnect the wires before the bomb even knew it was live. That night, I told Daria I booked us a dinner reservation for Saturday, the first one in months. She looked surprised. Maybe even relieved. Really? She asked. You're not mad anymore? No, I said. I think we've turned a corner. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I didn't let her see that I had already filed the anonymous ethics report that morning. That I had uploaded the video archive to a secure folder labeled for board review only. She smiled through dinner like nothing was wrong. I smiled too. And while she forked her salmon, sipping wine and talking about promotions and performance reviews, I imagined the very same board members reading the report I sent. Her future was unraveling under her plate, and she didn't even feel the tug. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't flip tables or leave angry notes or post anything online. No one knew I was leaving, not even her. Especially not her. I had no interest in grand exits or emotional explosions. I'd already lived in those moments in my head for weeks. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure. And control. The day the ethics report landed in the inboxes of Langford Group's board, I made sure I wasn't even in town. I'd taken the morning train north, to a cabin my late uncle left me years ago that Daria had never even bothered visiting. She always called it too disconnected from real life. But that was exactly what I needed. Disconnected. By noon, my phone buzzed with missed calls. 5 from Daria. 3 from Langford's office line. 1 anonymous voicemail I didn't bother listening to. I watched the notifications roll in like waves crashing against a dock I'd already unmoored from. Then I turned the phone off. I spent the rest of the day in silence. No podcasts. No emails. Just wind, trees, and the hum of a world that didn't care who had cheated on who. Later that week, Naomi messaged me. Just a screenshot, a memo from the board announcing a leadership transition. Langford was out. Personal misconduct under internal review. Daria's name wasn't listed, but I knew she wouldn't survive the fallout. I didn't celebrate. I didn't need to. I had already made peace with the fact that she was gone long before I physically walked out. And here's the truth, I thought walking away would hurt more. But it didn't. It felt like removing a heavy coat I forgot I was wearing. Like stepping outside after a storm and realizing the sky was still there, blue, endless, waiting. Weeks later, I got an email from her. The subject line just said, "Please. Just talk to me." I didn't open it. What could she possibly say that hadn't already been undone by silence? What could I possibly say to a woman who saw my kindness as weakness, and only feared me once I stopped explaining myself? I went back to my code, my coffee, my quiet little life. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small inside it. I felt whole. End of the story. What's the one moment in history, ancient or modern, where someone quietly walked away and changed everything? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Maybe it was a resignation. Maybe it was a refusal. Maybe it was you. This has been Reddit Confessions, where your story might be the next one we tell. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes, the loudest revenge is peace.